Welcome to the Sharkpreneur podcast with Kevin Harrington and Seth Greene. Kevin Harrington is the inventor of the infomercial, one of the original sharks from the hit TV show Shark Tank, and has generated over $5 billion in TV and digital direct response sales. Seth Greene is the world's first trusted authority on cutting-edge direct response marketing, a best-selling author, and the only 3-time Marketer of the Year nominee. On the podcast, Kevin and Seth interview sharkpreneurs who share straight talk on what it takes to explode your business.
49 faces looked to him in triumph. Over the last 12 months, they had each taken turns and promoted his business for a week at a time, driving over $987,342 in revenue. What if you had a network of 50 centers of influence who promoted your business every week for a year? Grab your copy of the #1 Amazon best-selling book, The Ultimate Guide to Growing Your Business with a Podcast, at 33% off the Amazon price by going to ultimatepodcastbook.com. Again, that website for 33% off the Amazon price is ultimatepodcastbook.com. Welcome to the podcast. This is your co-host, Seth Greene. Today, I've got the good fortune to be with Daryl Black of Daryl Black Leadership. Daryl, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, Seth, thank you very much for having me. And before we jump too far into it, I want to commend you and Kevin for the work you've been doing. The 1,100 and counting podcasts and the forum you're providing for folks, it's amazing. So first of all, kudos to you. I know it's not easy. So thank you. I appreciate that. And we'll convey your sentiments to Kevin as well. Let's go back in time a little bit and talk about you. How did you get started? That's such a great question. I started in volunteer search and rescue like 30 some years ago. I was involved in IT project management with a large telecommunications company and really grasping with how to lead during uncertainty. And I remember, Seth, it really came to a head. In fact, it just had an anniversary. It was a tornado, and I was involved in search and rescue at the time in central Alberta, a province where I live. And I remember receiving the briefing, and we had heard as many as 100 to 150 people were, missing and presumed deceased. And so received the briefing, and I'm supposed to be leading a whole bunch of folks through this thing. And I came across like the crest of the hill. I hadn't seen the disaster yet. And in front of me, it was a trailer or a campground, and right in front of me was just a swath that it just cut through the campground. And I remember thinking at that point, taking a deep breath and being like, man, oh man, like, where do we start? How do we do this? And from there, I just really started to double down on what does it take to lead through uncertainty, because high consequence decisions, time, stress, all of those other things, there has to be a better way that we can kind of systematize it. And that's what I've been doing for decades, both in the response side, but also in my leadership coaching side.
That is absolutely incredible. And I'm sure the longer version of that story could probably be in a book somewhere if it isn't already. So let's talk about how, because we're in very uncertain times as we're recording this. So talk a little bit about some of the lessons you've learned along the way in terms of how entrepreneurs, business owners can lead in times of uncertainty.
Well, yeah, that is my life's mission. Absolutely. And so one of the things that I've created is my Order to Chaos framework. It involves 3 pillars that handle or deal with this exact question. And the first is really self-mastery. I learned early on that for me to control or influence my external environment, I have to start controlling what happens on the inside. And when I was a younger leader, I actually didn't think of that. I was like, hey, they need to be doing what I'm telling them to do, and it didn't matter about me, I'm in charge, and all that other BS narrative that we tell ourselves. So I realized that, one, it starts with myself. And so there's a self-mastery element to the framework, and that's getting your stress in the moment taken care of, longer term stress, get your sleep taken care of, some basic physical kind of nervous system stuff. So that's the first pillar. The second is supercharging your productivity. Folks are busy, high growth startups and entrepreneurs and CEOs and C-suite and leaders of leaders, super busy, a laundry list of to-do items. So how can we take that long list, prioritize them, and just start knocking them off at a pace that's far outstrips the kind of regular worker, right? The individual contributor. And then the third pillar is now the leadership. How do I influence others, in particular at scale? And as I said, the the methods that I use, it revolves around what I call the MVE, Seth, and that's minimal viable effort. Look, I'm lazy. All right. Some could call it efficient, but what can I do to move the needle in those three areas the furthest with the least amount of effort in the least amount of time? And that's what I've distilled down. So self-mastery, so getting your shit together. 2, get shit done. And 3, learn how to herd cats, basically.
All right. All important lessons and vital skills for today's leaders. What are some of the biggest challenges in those areas that we're dealing with as leaders now?
Yeah, that's. I think one of the things that leaders grapple with in this day and age is what got me here won't get me there. And so what does that mean? Well, chances are folks, entrepreneurs, startups, particularly in the AI and tech space, areas that I look after in a little bit more detail, companies with revenues upwards of 10 million bucks to 4.8 billion. I'm working with a company multinational around that. And it's interesting because no matter what the size of the organization or where that leader fits in, they do grapple with a few things. One of which is what got you there, what got you here won't get you there. So realizing that your technical acumen is unfortunately no longer the number one tool in your toolbox. Now you have to realize that you are making the step from the widget building, the engineering, the programming, the coding, whatever that is that you probably got into because you loved it, isn't going to serve you very, very well. And you are in the people business. And one of the areas that it really shines is how do we build teams? Like, I can't do it myself. I'm overwhelmed. But Seth, I'm the only one that can do this. And so obviously I have to do it myself if you want it done right and all those other cliches. So I think one of the things that would move the needle the furthest is how to build autonomous, high-performing teams, which in turn retains and attracts top talent within it and frees you up from the overwhelm. It allows you to focus on what's important, so your headlights are on bright and you're looking down the road rather than just the immediate, what's just in front of your bumper. So, building those autonomous, high-performance teams, I think that is the number one effort that somebody could put in.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And you talk about autonomous teams. And then in the prior question, you talked about herding cats. So how do we get our cats to be autonomous?
Once again, a great question. And so the first thing, and I employ this all the time. So this is very much active. This isn't some 25-year-old academic kind of approach to how the world used to be. I still operate in chaotic and uncertain environments. So most recently, in my summers, this is what I do. I golf and I respond to emergencies. And then outside of summer, I do my executive and leadership coaching. So as recently as last summer, I was in a large national park, a wildfire, and for 5 weeks. And there were a number of teams rotating in and out. So I had to build teams rapidly that were ad hoc, didn't know anybody, each other certainly didn't know me. And now boom, away you go. So the steps, there's 4 steps involved in building those high performing autonomous teams that I would submit work each and every time. So the first step is ships don't sink because of the water around them. They sink because of the water that gets in them. So what does that mean? Well, first and foremost, we have to set the stage, Seth. So we want to set the expectations, set the standards, determine what does right look like. And you're doing this at a team level, right? You're getting everyone together and you're saying, hey folks, this is what right looks like. This is how we communicate. This is how we treat each other. This is how we share information, so on and so forth. And another big one, and I think Seth, you might agree, I've coached thousands of leaders. And one of the things that drives them crazy, like me, is hearing bad news from someone else. That drives me crazy. That is a trigger for me. Totally get it. So step 1, set the stage. The second is clarity is kindness. Should they know their job? Yeah, sure. Of course they should. But clarity is kindness. So go through their job descriptions, define their roles and responsibilities, but take it a step further. What are their financial boundaries? What are their decision-making boundaries? Who do they need to communicate with? How often do they need to communicate and update you? How often do they have to come to you with a problem? So you're being very, very clear in what you expect of them. And then the third, this is one of my favorite, it's the DDB 131 method. So what is that? Well, It's one problem. So in other words, one of the problems is teams that aren't autonomous, they're coming to you all the time, Seth, right? And we call it upward delegation. Hey, Daryl, I got this problem. Blah, fix it for me. Well, what? I'm sorry. And I've got 10 people on my team. If I have 10 people dumping their crap on me, upward delegating, asking me to solve their problems, no wonder I'm overwhelmed and I can't go to my kid's baseball game or cheer practice or whatever that is. So the 1-3-1 method builds that muscle. And so it involves one problem. Come to me with one problem, but articulate it. Do some due diligence. Why is it a problem? What's the scope of it? Those kinds of things, maybe some root cause. The second is the 3. Come to me with 3 options. Like, come on, man, like, help me out a little bit here. Give me some options. One of which, honestly, Seth, do nothing. Okay, and then come up with 2. So now come to me with 3 options. And then the last part is the 1, the recommendation. Give me a recommendation. So cognitively for the leader, they've done some of the heavy lifting for me. And so it's a lot easier for me to say yay or nay at that point. So if you implement the 1-3-1 as a critical step of the autonomous team, involvement equals commitment. So guess what? They're involved in the process. And you've had some authority exerted into it, some control, and then you just monitor it. And that's the 4th step, where moving from this command and control, where I'm in charge, this hierarchy, I think we've got it wrong. I think the leader, we need to invert the triangle, and that leader supports the team. And so leading with empathy, that is so, so important. You ask them what they're working on and what kind of support. So again, set that stage. Roles and responsibilities, be very, very clear. And that 1-3-1 framework, get that muscle, decision-making muscle and that autonomy going, that sense of responsibility, and then lead with empathy, move from command and control to support. And I'll tell you, that's what's going to really move the needle in terms of building high-performing teams.
Those are great strategies. Who is an ideal client for you?
For sure, the executive, the founder, the owner, as I said, that operates in that company that's upwards of the 10 million to, well, as I said, $4.8 billion revenue for sure. And they're just operating in uncertain environments, chaotic, high growth companies, and they're really trying to figure out how to scale while still maintaining their sanity and not selling their soul, basically.
Awesome. And where can they go to learn more about you?
Yeah, thank you for that. So best place would be on Instagram, DDB Leadership. So ping me there, the follow, give me a DM, and send me a message saying Shark, and I'll see if I can help you. Or on LinkedIn, same thing, Daryl D Black. Send me a message, say Shark in it so I know where you came from. And if you want more of my video material, check me out on YouTube.
All right. This has been Seth Greene with Daryl D Black from DDB Leadership. Daryl, thanks again for joining us.
Thank you very, very much for the opportunity.
Our pleasure. Thank you, everybody, for watching or listening. We will talk to you or see you next time.
Why do so many businesses struggle while others seem to explode overnight? Do you wish you had the secret to this type of exponential growth? Now, I've scaled more than 20 businesses to over $100 million, and it's not just luck. In my new book with Mark Tim, Mentor to Millions, you'll learn the repeatable framework I use in all my business ventures for massive success. Order at kevinmentor.com and get over $1,000 in bonuses. Head to kevinmentor.com.